The time is 2 p.m. This is the Monday edition of Market View right here on Eswatini TV. My name is Natalie Tole and welcome to the program. Over the past week, stakeholders gathered for the 31st session of the Intergovernmental Committee of Senior Officials and Experts for Southern Africa under the theme Unlocking AfCFTA Potential, Building Value Chains and Overcoming Barriers to Trade in Southern Africa. Eswatini has now assumed the chairmanship of the session for the next year, a significant responsibility at a time when the region is seeking to break free from the commodity trap and build more resilient value chains under the African Continental Free Trade Area. Today, we speak to the newly elected chairperson of the 31st session, also the MSME director locally, to reflect on the outcomes, the region's strategic priorities and the road ahead for the operationalization of the AfCFTA in the region. But first, our business stories this afternoon. In some of our business news, we begin with this. The Center for Financial Inclusion, CFI, a government institution under the Ministry of Finance, which promotes access to financial services and supports entrepreneurial development, is calling upon all youth between the ages of 18 and 35 to apply for grants under the Youth Support Program. Phumzile Mthethwa, project manager at FinClude, said that youth should send their business plans to the details provided on the CFI website. She also noted that the organization is working in collaboration with the Eswatini National Agricultural Union as now on this program.
The intention for the program is to help young people who cannot easily access financial services, and our objective is to ensure that those that have qualified in the project or in the collaboration, they're enabled to start working, and as they progress in their enterprises, they're able to access formal financial institutions. In this year's Step Up collaboration, we are targeting 100 youth, particularly in broilers and vegetable enterprises. We are looking for broiler producers with birds above 100. And then for vegetables, we are looking for youth working on a scale of 0.25 hectares and upwards. In terms of the support extended to date through this collaboration, FinClude through CFI has supported the Eswatini Agricultural Union with about 2,100,000 emalangeni, and this year being the last year of the project implementation, we have a envelope of about 500,000 emalangeni, and we have seen quite a number of young people benefiting from this program.
The Eswatini National Youth Council is urging the youth to take advantage of the opportunity.
We believe that this fund is created to support young people in growing their agricultural ventures. We want to encourage them. We also want to encourage young people to not just grow and sell, but to also take advantage of the value chain, which is big, and it offers opportunities at every stage, from production to processing to packaging. So we want young people to take advantage of that as well, which is also a chance to build their businesses and create jobs.
The president of the Eswatini National Agricultural Union, Matthias Matsebula, says this opportunity is important for farmers as they continue to face challenges with access to finance. He has also encouraged farmers to apply before the deadline, which is on the 6th of this month. He has further urged farmers to take advantage of the Broiler Chicks grant by Africa Chicks under the Eswatini Agriculture Development Fund, whose deadline is at the end of the month. Reporting, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Mbabane.
And that is your business brief. Market View continues after this.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Welcome back. You are still watching Market View. On to this now. Member states from Southern Africa gathered at the Royal Villas last week for the 31st session of the Intergovernmental Committee of Senior Officials and Experts for Southern Africa, supported by the United Nations Economic and Social Council, the Ministry of Finance and various partners. This was under the theme Unlocking African Continental Free Trade Area Potential, Building Value Chains and Overcoming Barriers to Trade in Southern Africa. But what exactly were the resolutions? We are now joined by the Director of Small and Medium Enterprises, Mluleki Dlamini, who is also the incoming chairperson of the 31st session, to unpack the key outcomes and resolutions of the meeting. A very good afternoon to you, Ngozi, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Notile. It's a pleasure being here.
Glad to have you. Let's begin with your reflections of the session that was held actually last week. What was achieved? What do you think were some of the key outcomes?
So basically during the meeting, we're discussing opportunities of integrating our micro, small and medium enterprises into this AFTA agreement, and also look at how we harmonize our policies so that we're able to take advantage of this market integration, and also look at seamless customs procedures as we trade across borders, and also issues of digitalization of all of these processes. So basically, those were the main issues that we're looking at, as you indicated, that the theme was unlocking the trade barriers and also taking advantage of these opportunities.
We often speak about, or emphasize on the operationalization of the AFTA, and to ensure that we unlock its potential for the Southern African region. You are now the new chairperson, but what do you think, could be the steps or action taken in the next 12 months to ensure that these commitments, we move from discussion, we move from paper to actually tangible implementation?
Definitely. I think we've got all the policies in place that will ensure that we take advantage of these agreements. So it will be a year whereby, as Eswatini chairing this committee, we'll make sure that we see results in terms of engagement of businesses in the region, creation of value chains in terms of what other products we can look at as a region that can be traded amongst ourselves, because we see that there is less trading amongst ourselves as a region. But as Eswatini chairing the committee, we will want to emphasize and also stress that we need to look at increasing trade amongst ourselves, and also very important to have our MSMEs as part of regional integration in this instance.
Yes. Strengthening our value chains speaks to breaking the commodity trap. Now, I'd like to know, which value chains do you think should be prioritized for immediate development? And in terms of considering the rollout, what could be the timelines here?
Definitely, we're looking at agriculture as one of those, because in the region we see most of our economies are agro-based, so we definitely have to take advantage of that. And also mineral beneficiation is one area that we can focus on, also ecotourism and others. So basically we're looking at in the next 12 months to see progress in those areas, and also making sure that we address all of these barriers to trade, which are your NTBs. So we want to see and make sure that all of those that have been reported needs to be addressed and be resolved.
Right. While you speak on the NTB mechanism, the non-tariff barriers, they remain quite the bottleneck, not only for Eswatini, but I think this is something that applies in the region. So how do you think we can use now the AFTA to resolve persistent trade disputes effectively, that is?
Yeah, definitely this will be a good platform to discuss all of these issues. Like for Eswatini, with Zimbabwe, we've got an issue in terms of SATEX on sugar. So this will be a good platform that we get our counterparts from Zimbabwe, we sit down, we understand what sort of challenges we have in trade in that particular product. Then after that, to resolve them, not just only Eswatini and Zimbabwe. We'll encourage all other countries to sit down in this platform. Obviously, we will be arranging and facilitating such discussions as the chairperson and making sure that all of them are resolved.
We've seen, or rather heard of an example where Zimbabwe, the leather industry in Zimbabwe actually partnered with Botswana's textile sector. Given these two, they are leading by example in terms of collaboration, but how can such cross-border industrial collaborations be scaled up across the region?
Definitely, this is one example, and it needs to be replicated across the region.
Yes.
We'll look at what sort of products we can collaborate with other countries as a country, and also make sure that we also replicate such initiatives across our region. So basically, this is one example, but there are quite a number. We have seen water projects between two countries. And we've also seen electricity being traded amongst countries in AFTA. Quite a number of examples we can quote, but definitely these are one of the examples that we will need to learn from and also replicate.
All right. Now, financing remains quite the challenge for especially emerging economies such as Eswatini, financing for MSMEs. How do you think instruments such as the After Adjustment Fund and regional development banks can be leveraged to close the MSME financing gap?
Definitely, we are encouraging that international financing organization partner with local financial institutions and provide line of credit for these companies, so that they in a way then extend that credit to local businesses. But obviously, when you extend such, you really need to have a strong case in terms of where will these products be traded. Will it be a profitable venture? All of those things. So basically, that is where we'll first have to start before even saying that is the financing available or not.
Yes. Now, as Eswatini takes over the chairmanship of the 31st session, or specifically as you take over chairmanship, sure, what do you think this leadership role practically means for the country and the broader development of trade within the SADC region?
Definitely, it's quite a huge task for all of us, but we'll live up to it because it will mean that we really need to make sure that we increase the trade within member states, and also ensure that we integrate enterprises into formal trade and address issues of standards, product standards, and go as far as also making finance available for businesses. So it's quite a number of areas that we'll need to focus on to make sure that at the end of the term of Eswatini, we'll then say that we achieved such issues. But the good thing is we'll be assisted by our secretariat, UNECA secretariat, yes, that will make sure that we convene regional meetings to make sure that we continue to achieve on all of the recommendations that came from the meeting.
Yes. MSME financing remains a gap, be that as it may. From a development standpoint, what does trade-led industrialization actually mean for the region, for many countries in the region that depend on MSMEs, that rely on MSMEs for effective and economic growth?
Definitely, yeah. It starts off with the issue of scalability, yes, and also export-led businesses. So because you know that a smaller population, you cannot produce for that population and be able to then grow. So you need to look at the broader African market as a business. Then that is where you will then be a pro-development enterprise. So in that way, we'll want to build more of such enterprises that will now know that their market is not the domestic market, but yes, it's basically targeting the regional external market for their growth. So immediately we get those. So it starts off with the adherence to international product standards and also understanding customs procedures because you're now trading across borders. Yes. So it starts there, and after they are able to trade, and also the volumes as well, because foreign markets do not require maybe small volumes. So you will have to increase your quantities that you will be exporting. Yes. So that is where we'll want to start off and then make sure that our enterprises grow to be multinational corporations.
You know, trade is actually good news for upcoming businesses. So I'd like for you to speak to mostly our MSMEs. Given the implementation of the AFTA standards and harmonizing of policies in the region, when you look at AFTA and its promises to the upcoming entrepreneurs, what exactly, you know, are the opportunities that are there?
In the aftermarket, you look at opportunities in various sectors, mainly agriculture, industrial products that can be traded, and also issues of textiles and clothing. If we've got such investment in the country, they are able to export to those areas. And also the issue of market linkages that I always refer to in terms of not to export raw material, but to export processed products that will form part of a component to a complete product. So in that way, you'll be seeing those linkages within the region, not that you are just one country producing the entire product, but different components coming from different countries assembled somewhere in one country, then after that the final product. So those are the kind of opportunities that we should look out to as a country, and also assist businesses to tap into those opportunities.
This past week, we saw Eswatini participating in a regional dialogue with regards to the operationalization and implementation of AFTA. But as chair, how do you think, this is my final question actually, how will you ensure, you know, continuity and accountability when it comes to implementing some of the resolutions that were adopted or deliberated upon during the session this past week?
Yeah, fantastic. We'll develop a roadmap that will have a monitoring and an evaluation tool, which will ensure that we track progress in the various areas, and so that as we report during the course of the year, we are able to track progress and report on progress based on those tools. So it will be very easy to track progress on all the areas that have been recommended by the meeting.
Right. Fair enough. Ngozi, thank you so much for your time. That was Director MSME Mluleki Dlamini from the Ministry of Commerce. We were unpacking some of the resolutions that were, you know, deliberated or adopted during the 31st session of the Intergovernmental Committee of Senior Officials and Experts for Southern Africa that took place in the country last week. This is Market View. The show continues after this.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds, full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Welcome back now for our market analysis segment. In-house economist Anele Sibia joins me virtually. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Sibia. Thank you so much for your time. It's the first trading day for the week, the first trading day actually for the month of November. What are your observations this afternoon? Mr. Sibia, I'm really hoping that you can hear me. Please activate your audio so that we're able to engage.
Can you hear me now? My audio is fine now.
You're just fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So a good afternoon to you and also to the viewers. So what we're seeing today is overall positive sentiments within the equities, largely driven by earnings season and, a signaling of, cooling down in the geopolitical tensions. But there is that growing concern, and markets are looking heavily at what is happening with the US government shutdown coming into its second week, into its second month. And there are no indications that we're seeing any any reneging coming through from either the Democrats or through the Republicans. So now what markets are starting to do is, just observing that and starting to see what the impacts are. As it were, you can see that in the aviation space, there is a bit of disruption now as people are calling out more sick, just to try and manage that little money that they have until they get their next paychecks as and when the government opens up. But when we go into the equities themselves, the strong sentiment within the US markets, largely driven by the fact that it's earnings seasons and, what investors are focusing on is those. So we can still see that the AI drive is still pushing markets to those new records, though there is a bit of a dip compared to what we're seeing last week. The Dow Jones Industrial Average still closing above 47,000. The Nasdaq Composite Index still closing above 23,500, and the S&P 500 maintaining that 84,000 mark, because we're expecting about 100 companies to declare their earnings this week. And when you look at that earnings report, in the US, we've seen companies posting, above expected gains, and now that's making markets rally. When we move into the European markets and the UK, what we're seeing again is if the FTSE 100 holding strong above 9,700, but we can see there's a bit of caution there because it's basically a flat line, is 0.7 gain. It's a bit of a flat line as markets are waiting to see, the inflation data, and also in the European Central Bank report, and also the UK Central Bank report. The Bank of London is expected to give us a direction in terms of where they're going to go with the interest rates within the UK in this month. So that's what investors are weighing in. But we've seen no manufacturing rebound, as we saw the likes of Land Rover and Jaguar going back into production after suffering that hack, which we saw earlier on in October. And then when you move on into the DAX and also into the CAC 40, we're seeing just two converging stories here. When you look into the CAC 40, it's maintaining that 8,000 mark, but we're seeing more of a shift from investors moving more towards those defense stocks, leaving the other stocks. But overall, The market sentiment remains positive, largely driven by those defense stocks. And when you come into Germany, Germany is somehow rebounding, regardless of the fact that we've seen a bit of some weaknesses in the manufacturing data that came out. But the fact that it's still earnings season, it's still driving markets, in the green, purely because we're seeing mixed earnings reports, but overall performance remains good within Europe. And then when you go into the Asian markets, it's a holiday today in Japan, so we don't have any readings on the Nikkei. But when you come into Hong Kong and Shanghai, what we are seeing there is a bit of some positives there. The Hansei still maintains that level above 26,000. That's largely driven by the tech sector. And overall, when you're looking into the Shanghai Composite Index, you can see that there are larger volumes now being traded. So you have more entrants coming into the stock market because it has somehow maintained that momentum and, just boosted hopes that the stock markets within Hong Kong is actually doing very well. And the Shanghai Composite Index, just some 13 points shy of that 4,000 mark, largely driven by the stimulus that the Chinese government has actually put into the markets. But the Sino-US trade relations are still very volatile at this point, and now that tends to put a bit of some brakes in the markets. Otherwise, we would have gotten to that 4,000 mark if there was a clear trade deal between the US and China. But, there are those concerns. And then also there are concerns around the manufacturing data and domestic demand within China. But we do hope that it's going to get to that 4,000 mark as we get more clarity on the trade deal. Coming into South Africa, again, we're seeing a bit of a rebound from that from 113,000 last week back to the 109 mark, largely driven by a stronger rand. And also we're looking into the next Reserve Bank meeting and what that might mean for the interest rates. We remain on a very same level on the Eswatini Stock Exchange. And when you come into the commodities, Notsile, the gold is moving back to that 4,000 mark, largely driven by those uncertainties and the overall dollar weakness in today's trade, also given, largely fueled by the fact that the government shutdown has actually entered its second month. And Brent crude oil, against those threats of just invading Venezuela. We had last week President Trump actually authorized the CIA to take military action in Venezuela. So now that has spooked oil markets a bit. And the Lilangeni remains relatively strong today in today's trade, supported by the gold and just the overall weakness of the rand. Thank you.
Sanele, thank you very much for that analysis. That was in-house economist Sanele Sibia sharing insights on what is making the day's trade. This has been the Monday edition of Market View. Thank you so much for tuning in. From myself and the team, until next time, do take care. Bye.
Shut up. We are Chutogane Bomage. Nagoba.
Njengashifu wenu le project yenu ngiyayithatha ngiyibekala.
Nawusafuna kuphila ngokuthula lakhaya. Uyawusita ukuthi kuyingcwaba elenza bayale project.
Ngivukela kanjani? Ngibona njani ngileke umfana. Sizatha uphumele